number of incidents in which law enforcement agencies have been involved where the use of the carbine would have been very advantageous to stopping the situation before it developed too far.
Well, I can tell you right now, just from the recent the Hollywood bank robbery scenario in February, that many agencies that we know and tactical operators, they are going to 223. The effectiveness of the carbine by far is superior to the 9mm.
There are a sizable number of weapons of this type that are legitimately owned by private citizens in this country, and there's not a lot of venues open to private citizens to receive proper training on the safe operation of this weapon system. 223 and 556 programs here at Gunsite give the private citizen a much better grounding in this weapon system that they're going to be able to obtain at most sources.
We certainly live by the 4 general safety rules here and hope that everybody else that's viewing this video will do the same, that you will burn these 4 general safety rules into your subconscious and you will use these the rest of your life. If you do that, you'll be a much safer, a much more professional gun handler, and everybody that is connected with you or around you will be a much happier person because you do this. The 4 general safety rules are, number 1, all guns are always loaded. Never pretend this is true. Take it utterly serious, and anytime you come into an area where you observe a gun or someone's carrying a gun, as soon as you see that weapon, the first thought that runs through your mind is that weapon is loaded. General safety rule number 2 is never let the muzzle cover anything you're not willing to destroy. If you're not willing to punch a hole in it, shoot it, and run the risk of possibly having what's on the other end, if it's a human being, die from it, don't point the muzzle at it. General safety rule number 3 is keep your finger off the trigger until your sights are aligned on any given target. The reason we must do this is because of the potential for interlimb interreaction, convulsive muscle spasms. If you have your finger on the trigger and your sights are not aligned on any particular target, or you don't intend to shoot, a loud noise, someone bumping into you, or just simply tripping and falling could cause you to inadvertently fire the weapon. General safety rule number 4 is be sure of your target. Be sure of what's beyond it, be sure of what's on both sides of it, be sure of what's in front of it. Be sure of what is in any close proximity to your target. We don't shoot at shadows, we don't shoot at things that we can't positively identify, we don't shoot at unnecessary movement.
We're frequently asked which modifications will enhance the performance of the Colt 223 carbine. As with any firearm, several modifications are considered to be of primary importance. First among them is a quality sighting system. This is the Aimpoint Comp 5000. It's an electronic red dot sight that offers a high degree of speed and accuracy. However, being a battery-powered sight, backup iron sights are desired. 2 systems give us this capability. For the standard A2 carbines, the Mark Brown custom integrated rail mount lowers the aimpoint unit into the sighting plane and replaces the carry handle while retaining the factory A2 sights. For the factory flat top guns, the GG&G integrated rail system with its own mount and a flip-up auxiliary rear sight system is available. A manageable trigger is also desired and is a key to achieving the best possible accuracy from this weapon system. Factory parts are not tunable, but several aftermarket units are available, such as this one from JP Enterprises. Long guns present a problem as to how to properly carry them. Many sling systems are available, from the simple carry strap to the tactical sling, which allows the firearm to be secured if the hands are required to do other tasks. Another desirable modification is the addition of a tactical light, such as this unit from Surefire. Mounting systems may vary, but for switching, the tape switch is preferred. The proper loading sequence for the Colt AR carbine will be as follows.
We want to keep the buttstock of the weapon in the shoulder if we can at all times. We like to think at Gunsite that if you have the buttstock out of your shoulder, then you're not in the proper mental frame of mind. You're certainly not ready to fight if necessary. So we try to keep the buttstock in the shoulder pocket as we load. An alternative method to this would be the underarm assault mode. If the gun is getting quite heavy, you've got some heavy magazines that are fully loaded, what have you, certainly it's okay if you need to come to an underarm assault mode here and load the weapon. And certainly if you need to, you can fight from here. We don't necessarily advocate point shooting or instinctive shooting, but certainly at most conversational distances or confrontational distances, you can fire very effectively from here. And this is an alternative method for loading the carbine. But we much prefer buttstock in the shoulder, head up, eyes down range. We access a magazine from our magazine pouch, and we use very large and blocky motions to hold the magazine, so it's held thusly. We insert the magazine into the magazine well, pushing it in sharply and tugging down or pulling down on the magazine to make sure it is locked into place. When we do this, if the action is locked to the rear, we take the thumb of the non-firing hand and we can hit the bolt closure device, or an alternative method is we can open our palm and we can slap the bolt closure device to close the action of the weapon. With the thumb, it would work like so. Another method of chambering around is just simply taking your left hand off the forend of the weapon, opening your palm, and slapping the bolt closure device. To ensure that we have a round chambered in the weapon, we simply take the magazine out and visually or physically at night check the top round of the magazine to make sure it has jumped from the left or right side to the opposite side. We reinsert the magazine, tug down, and now we are ready to continue. Both the loading and unloading procedures with the carbine are both administrative duties. However, they still need to be done in a correct fashion, and they certainly need to be done in safety. To properly unload the carbine, the first thing we want to do, as with any other weapon, is we want to remove the source of the ammunition. So the first thing we do is remove the magazine. The magazine comes out of the weapon, and we secure it in our waistband or pocket and put both hands back on the rifle. And as we mentioned earlier, since this is an administrative duty, this is one time when you can break your firing grip, because with the Colt series of weapons, it's very difficult to unload the weapon properly with both hands still on the rifle. So this is how we do it. We can take our left hand, come back and grab at the juncture of the magazine well, relinquish our firing grip on the weapon, use our fingers and thumb of our firing hand to take the charging handle and draw it to the rear, and ejecting the round that's in the chamber. At the same time, I will use my thumb of my non-firing hand to use the bolt closure and opening device to lock the bolt to the rear. After we've gone through our unloading procedure, the next thing we need to do in order is to visually inspect as well as physically inspect the weapon, the chamber area of the weapon, and make sure the weapon is truly unloaded. To do this, just simply take the weapon, rotate it over, look in visually, and if need be, and especially at night, we want to get a finger down in this chamber area and we want to feel and we want to check. One little caveat here was the AR-15 family of weapons. It doesn't take very much to jar the bolt forward, so when you're doing this, be very careful, otherwise you can get a tremendous owie on your finger if the bolt happens to suddenly slam forward. Another important aspect of the operation of this rifle and maintaining your continuity of fire is properly loading the number of rounds in the magazine. That may seem on the surface very easy. It's a 20-round magazine, so I'll load 20, or if it's a 30-round magazine, well, I'll just load 30. Unfortunately, this is not necessarily true, and we should adhere to the following dictum that we use here at Gunsite. If it's a 20-round magazine, only load 18 rounds. If it's a 30-round magazine, only load 28 rounds. The reason we do this is just simply because if you need to tack load the rifle at any point in time, or you need to speed reload, and certainly if you need to speed reload, you're going to need it last week if you understand what I'm talking about, but if you can't fully seat the magazine because you've loaded it too full, and there's a round in the chamber, and that's usually when it occurs, then this is not going to do you any good. So we can ward off this problem of not being able to seat the magazine fully by only loading 18 in a 20-round magazine and only loading 28 rounds in a 30-round magazine.
We're going to take just a couple of minutes and talk about how to make this gun do what you need it to do for you. How do we establish a good practical working zero for your carbine? As most of you know, the human eye sees in a straight line. But a bullet does not travel in a straight line. So what we do is adjust the sights to predetermine at what point we want that bullet to intersect with our line of sight. Now, a good practical working zero with this cartridge is about 250 yards. What we have then is our bullet trajectory passes through and drops back into the line of sight, giving you point of aim, point of impact at 250 yards. Your initial intersection with this zero will be at 50 yards. If you have range limitations on your ability to work with your weapon for zero, you can accomplish a pretty good 250-yard zero by zeroing the weapon at 50, which you can do at most facilities. Now, within these parameters, you have a maximum height of trajectory at about 100, and this will put you about 3 inches above your line of sight. We now have established a zero that lets us hold point of aim without any concern for holdover at any distance from 100 to 300. We simply hold the sights where we want them and take the shot. This is a good basic working zero that'll put us within about a 6-inch diversity anywhere from 100 to 300, which is actually an increment that the human eye probably can't see at those distances.
Techniques of readiness that we use here at Gunsite are mounts, or the procedures you might use to employ or deploy the weapon will certainly be dependent on terrain, weather conditions, the type of weaponry you have, just who you might be looking for, and just how much danger might be present in the general area. One of the methods we use here at Gunsite is called outdoor ready or high ready. To assume high ready or outdoor ready, even though we have a tactical sling mounted on this particular weapon, the only thing we need to do is drop the toe of the buttstock down to about belt level, raise the muzzle, and take the front side of the weapon or the muzzle of the weapon and place it along the imaginary line that runs from the center of the pupil of your eye out to the particular area that you're looking or observing. And we like to think of this as eyes, muzzle, potential targets. If you're utilizing the outdoor ready or high ready, it's best to be used in rather open terrain, sparse vegetation, and we always want to think eyes, muzzle, target. You can see some potential problems with this should you have targets or threats very close to you. And the reason I say this is just quite simply because the left hand on the forearm of the weapon, the fore end, the light mount, and other things that you might have mounted on the weapon might preclude you from seeing an adversary that's very close to you. Another technique of readiness we use here at Gunsite is called guard or low ready. We assume the guard or low ready by taking the buttstock and placing it into the pocket made by the shoulder of the firing hand, and we have a nice comfortable grip on the fore end of the weapon. Our head is up, our eyes are downrange, and when we're searching for potential threats, here again we think eyes, muzzle, target. So wherever our eyes look, the muzzle follows. This is a very comfortable position. You can hold the weapon up utilizing bone support, which is certainly easier than muscle support, and you're less fatigued. You can use this almost in any situation, outdoors, and you can potentially use it indoors as long as you do not telegraph with the muzzle. Another technique of deploying the carbine that we use here at Gunsite, especially for indoor scenarios and as well in some outdoor situations, is called muzzle depressed indoor ready. And we use this primarily when we're working in close confines of a building or close quarters, and we don't want to telegraph via our muzzle that anyone's coming. And this is very similar to guard or low ready in that we have the buttstock firmly planted in the shoulder pocket, and we just simply take the muzzle of the weapon and we rotate it down and close to the body outside the left or right foot, depending on which side that you shoot from. At this particular point, we still keep our head up, we still have our eyes downrange, and we can effectively engage targets from this position if necessary, just simply by rolling the weapon up to our eye level and shooting if we need to. Another method of tactical deployment that we use here at Gunsite quite often in a tactical scenario, especially indoors, would be just to allow the muzzle of the weapon to drop to the center line of both feet. This tucks the weapon in very close to the body. It doesn't telegraph with the muzzle or any part of the weapon that you might be negotiating a corner or a doorway. We have the toe of the buttstock still in the shoulder pocket. The head is up, the eyes are still downrange searching, and if we need to mount the weapon and we need to shoot, defend ourselves, we just simply roll the weapon up to eye level, focus on the front sight, slack out of the trigger, and press as usual. By the way, another carry method that we use here at Gunsite quite often is this cross-body carry. We use bone support primarily, and with the help of the sling, the tactical sling, to help support the weapon. You can patrol long periods of time in comfort with this, and you can still mount the weapon to your eye level, shoot quickly and accurately if you need to. To properly mount the weapon from outdoor ready or high ready, there are several things that we need to be concerned with. Number one is keeping the muzzle in contact with the eyes, as we did eyes, muzzle, target. Secondarily, when we mount the weapon to our eye level, we make sure we get the buttstock solidly in the pocket provided by the firing shoulder, and that we pull back on the pistol grip with the carbine back into the shoulder with the firing hand. At the same time, we profile the body. In other words, we try to be as aggressive with this stance as we possibly can. This gives us a better firing platform from which to negotiate multiple targets. It also helps in our accuracy and recoil control. To mount the weapon properly again, we leave the muzzle where it is, mount the buttstock to the shoulder, focus on the front sight, and press the trigger smoothly to the rear. To effectively engage a threat downrange from a guard or low ready position, one needs to be ever mindful of bringing the weapon up to his eye level, not bringing his head down to the weapon. Pulling back with the firing hand on the pistol grip of the weapon, pulling it back into the pocket, and keeping the non-firing hand elbow as directly underneath the piece as possible so you can keep your hits centered on any potential target. It may look like this. To effectively engage a threat downrange from muzzle depressed indoor ready, or to utilize this in the confines of a house, again you need to remember to bring the weapon up to your eye level smoothly, focus on the front sight, and press to the rear. It may look something like this. To effectively engage targets downrange from the muzzle depressed center of the body, we again have to keep our head up, our eyes downrange, mount the weapon smoothly to our eye level, don't bring your head down to the gun, and that may look something like this. From a cross-body position, if you're searching, you're on patrol, and you need to mount the weapon, you need to be ever mindful of, again, bringing the weapon up to your eye level. Not bringing your head down to the gun. To execute a proper tactical reload, I think we need to probably digress a little bit and talk about why we tactically reload. We tactically reload when there's a lull in any immediate action, and we also do it to maintain our continuity of fire. It does us no good to approach a potential deadly scenario with less than a full gun unless we can't arrange that in some fashion. But to execute the proper tactical reload, the first thing we need to do is we need to retrieve a spare magazine from our spare magazine pouch and have a proper grip on it. The next thing we do is we bring it up to the magazine well. We hit our magazine release button using the middle and little and ring finger of the non-firing hand and thumb to remove the magazine that's in the magazine well. Then we next place the full magazine in the magazine well, pressing in until we feel it or hear it click, and then by tugging down to make sure it's locked into place. The magazine we just removed from the magazine well may contain ammunition. If it does, we need to save this for later. We take it and we place it in our pocket, our cargo pocket, waistband, but nevertheless we save it for later use. We reassume our guard or low ready technique, and we continue searching for other potential threats. To properly execute a speed reload with a carbine, the first thing we must do is access a spare magazine for the magazine pouch. Getting the proper grip on the magazine. Bringing it up to the magazine well at the same time, releasing the magazine from the weapon. Inserting the spare magazine, pushing in until you feel or hear the click, and then tugging down on the magazine to make sure it's seated. Then we briskly manipulate the charging handle, charging the chamber, and shoot if necessary.
Shooting a firearm from a standing position is our weakest option, and about the only reason to do it is because that's what the situation dictates. We draw our power from the earth, and the closer your head gets to the ground, the more stable you're going to be and the more accurate you're going to shoot. We have several options for shooting from braced positions, and we'll take a look at those now. Okay, starting with standing and gradually working down to the most stable position, which is prone, we'll begin with variations on kneeling position. The braced kneeling position acts as both an accuracy enhancer and a position that will allow you to get down behind low and intermediate cover. To get into braced kneeling, we're going to take the support side foot and step about halfway across and halfway forward. A line drawn through the heels and out the toe of the support foot would intersect the line of fire. Now we're going to drop our weight, bring our weight down onto the strong side knee. The support elbow comes under the piece, and the flat of the elbow rests on the flat of the knee. In this position, you have strong vertical support all the way from the hand down the arm, the elbow, the knee, down to the foot, to the ground. This is an extremely stable and accurate position. Again, it gives you an accuracy enhancement, and it allows you to get down behind low and intermediate cover very efficiently. A second variation on kneeling, which serves a slightly different purpose, is speed kneeling. This is not a braced position, it's not an accuracy enhancer. Its tactical mission is to change your angle of fire. If you find yourself in a situation where you have friendlies in the background, if you have a concern about a stray round or over penetration, you can change your angle of attack by simply taking a big step forward and dropping your weight onto that back knee. This allows us to engage with a high torso or head shot and alter our angle of attack so that any rounds that miss would pose less of a threat to that questioned area in the background. A third variation on the kneeling position, which has a tactical mission other than accuracy enhancement, is known as double kneeling. And this position gives you several advantages. It's acquired by simply shifting your weight back slightly and going forward onto both knees simultaneously. This position gives you a wide, stable base. It allows you to elevate or depress your shooting position depending on your flexibility, and it gives you the ability to do rollouts right or left and utilize cover from a solid platform. Unlike the kneeling positions, which can be acquired and quit very quickly, sitting position has one disadvantage in that once you're in it, you're pretty much in it, and it's difficult to get out. On the plus side, it gives you a good solid firing platform, second probably only to prone. It allows you to get down behind intermediate cover, and if you're going to be in a position for a while, such as a perimeter or an overwatch position, it's a little bit on the useful side. Getting down into the sitting position, we're faced about 45 degrees to our line of fire. Simply step across, ankle over ankle, and ease our weight down using the thigh muscles to cushion our fall. As soon as your posterior touches the ground, the elbows go inside the knees. flat to flat, and you have a solid firing platform. Once you're down into sitting, you have three options depending on your body structure as to what's the most comfortable and steady position for you to shoot from. Cross leg will be the position you'll probably be in when you're initially assuming the position. This is a good, solid, stable firing platform and the quickest to assume because you don't have to move anything. Extending the legs forward into cross ankle allows you to lean forward a little further, again putting the insides of the elbows on the insides of the knees and giving you a very solid, low to the ground firing position. From a field utility perspective, open leg can be utilized, giving you the ability to raise and lower your line of fire, and this can prove very useful in the field if you find yourself on an angled surface such as a hillside. Another intermediate position, which you will either love or hate, is the squat position. This has several advantages over kneeling as an intermediate position in that it is quick to assume, quick to quit, and allows you to brace both elbows rather than just one. To assume the position, faced about 45 degrees to your line of fire, feet about shoulders width apart, keep your upper body slightly forward and simply relax your knees, allowing your body to drop down between your heels. Elbows go inside the knees. This gives you a very stable, solid firing position that you can get into and out of quickly. If your position is flanked and you need to change your line of fire, you can simply hop and shift, bringing your line of fire in line with your new threat as it appears. Our strongest and most stable position, because our head is closest to the ground and the most of our body is in contact with the ground, is prone. Getting into prone with the long gun is done similarly to the way we teach getting into prone with a pistol. We shift our weight forward and drop down onto both knees. Catch your weight with your support hand. Bring the weapon forward in line with your target. The support hand comes under the piece with the elbow as far under for support as possible. Ankles are turned out and feet are flat on the ground. An option to the prone position, depending on your physical structure, is Olympic prone. To assume this, we bring the support side toe under and the shooting side knee forward, lifting the diaphragm off the ground and taking the strain off the lower back. A couple of useful variations on prone present themselves for varying tactical situations. The first is referred to as urban or rollover prone. To go into this position, we're going to face about 90 degrees to our line of fire. Going forward onto both knees, catch your weight on the support hand, and the elbow is going to roll under against your sternum, pulling the butt back into the pocket with the shooting hand. Support hand goes under your forend in a fist or a billiard bridge position to influence your ability to elevate or depress your line of sight. This position has utility for shooting with a minimum of exposure of your body around corners or even under extremely low cover or through holes in fences and similar situations. A second tactical variant here is what we refer to as supine, and this position has application if you needed to shoot around any kind of left-hand barricade or some kind of unusual low cover, such as a curb line. And to obtain this position, facing toward your target line, we simply sit down and lay back flat. Your head goes right down on the ground. Reverse your support hand so that the fingers are up over the top of the forend. Turn the toes outboard, bring the elbow down as close to your chest as possible. You can put the bulk of your body behind a piece of low cover this way and return accurate fire from this position. One word of caution is in order when doing any kind of shooting training with barricade material and carbines. Depending on which carbine you own, keep in mind that the disparity between your bore line and your sight line can be as much as 2.5 to 4 inches. What your eye sees through the sights may not be what the tip of that bullet that's resting in the chamber sees. If you happen to have your barrel below a brick wall and you think your sights are clear, you can add a big element of excitement to your training program by firing that round into the barricade in front of you.
Immediate action drills are vital to your survival, even with the carbine. Anytime the weapon has a stoppage or it fails to fire, you need to do something immediately to rectify that situation. In the case of pressing the trigger on the carbine and it fails to fire, you immediately take the non-firing hand, tap the bottom of the magazine well sharply, at the same time tug down on the magazine to make sure it is fully seated, briskly run the charging handle, chambering a fresh round, come to guard or low ready, search, or fire if necessary. The next immediate action drill for the carbine, as you can see, we have an obstruction in the chamber area. This malfunction is cleared basically the same way as we did the first one. We take the non-firing hand off the weapon, we tap the magazine sharply. We tug down on the magazine to make sure it is firmly seated. We briskly run the charging handle while turning the weapon to the right to clear out the obstruction. We then come to guard, assess, or fire if necessary. Further immediate action drills may be necessary in a deadly force confrontation. You attempt to fire the carbine. Pressing the trigger, nothing happens. You immediately bring the carbine down to the center line of the body and let it hang from the tactical sling. Draw your secondary weapon, which would be your sidearm, and continue addressing the deadly threat. Drop to guard or low ready and assess as necessary after you've neutralized that threat. A further immediate action drill may be required depending on the tactical situation, especially if you don't carry a secondary weapon such as a sidearm. At this point, you would attempt to fire the carbine again, pressing the trigger. We see that nothing happens. Immediately tap the bottom of the magazine sharply, tug down on the magazine as it's seated in the well to make sure it's firmly seated. Operate the charging handle briskly and attempt to fire once again. Again, the weapon is inoperable. At this particular point, we would immediately seek cover and or drop to a kneeling position. Lock the bolt to the rear by pulling the charging handle to the rear. Strip the magazine out of the weapon. Cycle the bolt minimally 3 times. Insert a fully loaded magazine. Again, cycle the bolt and attempt to fire if necessary, or come to a guard or low ready and search left and right to see if there are further threats that you need to negotiate. Multiple target engagement is a real serious problem, especially in today's real world. If you're faced with multiple adversaries, there are some things you need to really consider. Those are weaponry, posture, and intent. And certainly firing a multitude of shots at any one particular target wastes a lot of time and allows that second or third or fourth adversary to begin launching lead in your direction immediately, putting you in a very precarious position. So the answer to this might be to put something as fast as you can on each one of those adversaries. With the carbine, firing a single shot center mass of the first adversary, immediately moving to the second adversary and firing a very fast pair. Then coming back and covering the first person that you shot and fire again if necessary. If he's still on his feet, fire again or as many times as you need to and put him out of that fight. That scenario might be played as follows. Another method of engaging deadly threats, if need be, especially while on the move, is called shooting on the move, especially if you need to be mobile, the shooter-operator, that is. In order to do this correctly, the shooter-operator needs to be cognizant of a few things. He needs to keep the upper body isolated from the waist up. He needs to keep his toes pointed in his direction of travel. He needs to keep his knees flexed and his backside down. Let's put this into real action.
It's been said that tactics is an art, not a science, and there are probably as many variations on tactical procedure as there are tactical operators. But there are certain fundamental things that most of us can agree on, and they may be a benefit to you someday if you encounter real bad guys in your life rather than our crash test dummies here. Tactical guideline number 1, use all your senses. Scan for target, changing your eye focus out and then in, searching in rays rather than bands, out to the limit of your vision, then shift to the edge of the line of sight and repeat out and in until you're satisfied. Stop periodically to listen for any kind of noise that's out of character for the particular surroundings in which you're working. Vision is a warning system for about 180 degrees. Sound is 360. Number 2, never turn your back on anything you have not checked. Search systematically. Make sure that you see both side walls and the rear wall of any room or closet before turning away, and never bypass an area you have not searched. Nothing is safe until you have checked it personally and rendered it safe. What you don't know can kill you. The same principle applies to obscured areas out of doors. Number 3, stay away from corners. Don't lead with a muzzle. Use the angles to your advantage, not to your assailants. Stay back from the corner and slice the pie, exposing one slice of the area to be cleared at a time. Crowding the corner puts you at less of an advantage. Be aware that you can expose your advance by leading around the corner with a muzzle. Use the appropriate position indoors or out. Tactical guideline number 4, maximize the distance between you and a threat. The closer an attacker is to you, the better his chance of getting lucky with a stray shot. Police shooting statistics show that your training enhances your odds of winning as the distance of engagement increases. Take advantage of your ballistic capability. Stay away. Number 5, keep your balance. Don't leap around in a tactical situation. To deliver accurate fire, you need a stable, but not necessarily stationary, shooting platform. Don't get caught with your legs crossed. Move in half steps, bringing the trailing foot up to the leading foot, sideways, forward, or backward, unless you're under fire or otherwise need to move with speed. And finally, watch your front sight. It's normal under the stress of combat to look at your target. Resist that natural tendency and let your training save your life. Once you've identified the threat and decided that you must shoot, concentrate on the front sight and a clean surprise break. This is your salvation, and it is absolutely possible to do it under stress. Our graduates have proven that many times. A useful accessory on any tactical weapon is a tactical light. There are many ways to accomplish this mechanically, but just as important as the mechanical aspects are the methods you use to employ it. Let's take a couple of minutes and look at some of the methods of employment for tactical lights on carbines. If you're operating by yourself, you're generally going to want to move at a slow and careful pace in a stealth mode. You have only one set of eyes and ears when you're operating by yourself. Use the light to your advantage. Remember, the light is your friend and your enemy. The light identifies and locates your attacker. It also identifies and locates you. Use ambient light wherever you can. Use the light smart. Clear an area, light out, and then you'll probably want to move or get to a position of cover if you can. If you're operating with a partner or as part of a team, there's a growing theory among a lot of tactical operators that the more light, the better. In a situation like this, we're going to move very rapidly, dynamically through the problem, and we want to get as much light on the problem as we can. You'll turn the light on and run it all the way through the problem and try to overwhelm any potential attacker before he can react.
Go move! Go move! Go move!
223 Carbine's popularity is based largely on its simplicity of design and its ease of maintenance. With a carbine that's known to be clean, most malfunctions can be isolated to one of three areas. One is ammunition. Only good quality factory ammunition should be used at any time. A second area is magazines. Magazines should be cleaned frequently and inspected for dents and other damage that might occur during firing. Third area is lubrication. Since this weapon system requires very little lubrication, under-lubrication is rarely a problem. Using only a small amount of a good lubricant, such as TW25 from Clean Bore, and using it only on the bolt carriers, bearing surfaces, and a small amount on the rear of the locking lugs on the bolt will result in reliable operation. Too much lubrication, the most common situation, will attract dust, debris, and powder residue, which will lead to malfunctions in the gun. These contaminants also quickly contribute to the wear within the weapon. To sum it up, keeping this weapon system clean and well lubricated will result in far fewer headaches on the range, in the field, and on duty.
Dry practice is absolutely essential. And all you shooters out there know that we don't get to shoot enough, we don't get to train enough, we don't do anything as much as we'd like to. So if you really want to maintain your proficiency level, you gotta dry practice. Do it as much as you possibly can so that you can maintain your proficiency level that you desire. Unload the weapon and all magazines. Place all live ammunition into your dry practice container. Then put the container in a room or place totally separate from where you intend to conduct your dry practice. Go to your designated dry practice area. It should be a quiet area where you can practice undisturbed. Dry practice should be done only in that area, and the practice target used should only be visible during the practice session. The backstop you practice against must meet the safe direction requirement and must be able to contain a bullet if a negligent discharge did occur. Check your weapon one last time to be sure it is unloaded. Mentally enter the dry practice mode. Concentrate on the dry practice drills and avoid all distractions. If at any point you are interrupted by a phone call or a beeper, immediately cease dry practice. If you decide to continue after the interruption, go back to step one and start over. Point in at something which will sustain minimal damage and contain a bullet if an ND occurred. An example would be a fireplace or a block wall. This is where you should place your dry practice target if you intend to use one. Do not use a mirror as a dry practice target, as you will have a tendency to look at your reflection rather than the front sight. Dry practice on the desired techniques for 10 to 20 minutes. Be sure to practice the techniques properly. It does not help to reinforce bad habits. Once you decide to leave dry practice, stop. Do not continue. Put the weapon in the condition you would like to have it in, loaded or unloaded, and leave it alone. The session is over. Don't ever say one more time. The reason why is that's when you could have that ND.
Dry fire practice is an excellent and inexpensive way to practice elements of your tactical carbine techniques. Training studies have shown the value of dry fire practice. It enhances safety and good marksmanship skills. As with each of our training elements, a specific method is taught to achieve a safe and fast learning curve in our students. When a practice session begins, that is all that is focused on. When the practice session is over, you must stop all practice techniques and also stop thinking about the practice session. The following video practice session is an example of a dry fire study guide. All dry fire procedures must be strictly adhered to. Only unloaded firearms with dummy ammunition should ever be used in any dry fire practice session. Always know your target, what's around and beyond your target. If you use this dry fire session video, you must have a reasonable backstop. The producers and Gunsite Training Center accept no responsibility for accidents and non-compliance of any and all safety rules. The following targets will appear stationary for 1.5 seconds. Concentrate on a focused front sight and smooth trigger press. operate the action of your unloaded firearm, and get ready for the next target. Ready? Let's begin. Watch for these exciting videos from Gunsite. Tactical pistol, tactical shotgun, edged weapons, and concealed carry. If you'd like more information on courses or products, call Gunsite Training Center at 520-636-4565 or visit our website at www.gunsite.net.